Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me in today. My name is Cyreta Laws-Frumau. I am a performance and mindset coach with the Proctor Gallagher Institute. And for the month of July, I am going through the book, Think and Grow Rich. Now, this book has sold over 1.5 million copies. It is a book that a lot of persons have used. It features more than over 500 of the richest men that were living at the time. Thousands. Well, it sold 1.5 million copies. So can imagine the number of persons that have actually read this book. But not only that, it's really important that even though I am going through the book and bringing out some of the key points, it is a book that needs to be studied. So this is a good book to keep and to read every day. My mentor, Bob Proctor, he read this book for approximately 60 years, for most of his adult life. And he was able to transform his life from being broke, sick, and unhappy to happy, wealthy, and healthy. So we are at chapter 3, and I want to remind you that application is key. So I'm giving you each day one exercise that you can do. And we do have 24 hours in the day. I know that you have a lot to do, but if you can take a few minutes or even dedicate 1 hour to reading this book and to even completing the exercise, it will make such a huge difference in your life. All right, so let's get into it. We're at the second step towards riches. And this is the chapter on faith. It's one of my favorite chapters. They state in this book that faith is a state of mind. You know, faith is also described, if you look in any of the regular dictionaries, it's described as strong belief. So we all have faith in one thing or the other. Or we have, it's also described as confidence in someone, in yourself, or in something. I think it's really key that you have faith in yourself. It's healthy. So even though persons might say, oh, you're being overconfident or you're being full of yourself, if you don't have confidence and faith in yourself, how can you expect anyone to? You know what I mean? So I want you to start having faith in yourself today. Let's do that for ourselves. The second point is that faith plus thought can influence the subconscious mind. And this Napoleon Hill described as similar to prayer. And any one of us who have been involved in any part of any religion or any spiritual practice knows that we have implemented for a large part faith. Because, or if you use the word belief, it still comes back to faith. So we have demonstrated faith in a lot of things. Okay. All right. The third point is that faith plus love plus sex are the most powerful of all positive emotions. And something beautiful that he said, love and faith are psychic. And I thought that was wow. You know, that is something special. How does this relate to our desire? Remember in the previous chapter, we stated how important it was to have a desire, to have something that we were working towards. Well, you can have faith in your desire. When you have faith in your desire, you go on to convince your subconscious mind to bring the thing that you want closer to you. Now, I really want you to follow as we go along with each chapter, because what you will see is that each chapter builds on the last one. And so everything is going to come together really, really beautifully. I think this book was well written. All right, so we're going to use faith to convince our subconscious mind to bring the thing that we want closer to us. Now, there are different parts of the mind. We do study this book at Proctor Gallagher, and we focus on two sides of the mind, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the part that takes in the knowledge, and the subconscious mind is the mind that actually controls our behavior. It is the mind that is the emotional mind, which is why it is so important. You will see as we go through the rest of this chapter how important it is to impress the subconscious mind, because again, that is the part of the mind that will influence our behavior and influence our belief and influence what we think we can do, be, have. Okay, so the three principles that are the three principles that I picked out from this chapter was 1, faith, 2, the subconscious mind, and 3, repetition. Let us start with faith. So we already said that faith is a state of mind. And we also learned that faith, when repeated with thoughts, so when you back faith with the right thoughts over and over, it becomes the truth. So you start believing it, and this develops into faith. So you start saying to yourself, convince yourself of something. You start thinking about something, and you speak about that thing, and you think about that thing so much that it actually becomes true. It actually manifests in your life. And we're going to see a couple of examples of this. And I think you'll be able to see a couple of examples as well in your own life. And as I mentioned before, faith mixed with emotion is key. Now, on page 85, that is of my book, it talks about how thoughts plus feeling brings your desire closer to you. So let me just go to page 85. It says here that, and this is where, if you've heard about it before, the law of attraction comes into play. It says thoughts which are mixed with any of the feelings of emotions constitute a magnetic force which attracts from the vibration of the ether other similar or related thoughts. And basically what it's saying is that any thoughts that you have, that you emotionalize, that you put emotions to, you know what emotions are, you know what feelings are, you attract that to you. So you become a magnet to the things that you are very emotional about. And the ether, so this is it. Ether is invisible matter. This is just a simple explanation for it. It's invisible matter that permeates empty space. I really love this topic. And it goes on to say that in the ether, there are both positive and negative forces of vibration. And so you can have vibrations of fear, poverty, disease, failure, misery, and you can have vibrations of prosperity, health, success, and happiness. And he goes on to say that the human mind is constantly attracting vibrations from the which harmonize with that which dominates the human mind. In other words, if you're thinking thoughts, negative thoughts, you're attracting, you move yourself into a negative vibration and you attract negative things to you. When you think positive thoughts, you move into a positive vibration and attract positive things to you. That's the simple way of putting it. But you can see also that when you feel good, how good things, it's like, you see more people that are smiling, you notice things that you're more grateful for, you feel better when you think, when you think thoughts that are in harmony with good. Of course, the opposite, you might be looking in your environment and you notice that there's nothing to be happy about. But remember what we said here. So faith, right, is convincing yourself, regardless of appearances, it's convincing yourself of the good. And we can always find good if we look around. There's always something positive in our environment. All right, let's move on to the second point, which is the subconscious. And I already spoke a little bit about the subconscious mind. I want to add here that it accepts both negative and positive. It doesn't have the ability to reject. So you can really influence your subconscious mind. It is when the thoughts first come into the conscious mind that you have the ability to accept or reject. So it's very important what you're paying attention to. And you can convince your subconscious mind that what you want is real. And you can do this, we mentioned before in chapter about, in our last video, about using a vision board, of putting the things that you want closer to you. So when you look at it, your mind starts thinking about those things. Now, the final principle in this chapter that I want to talk about is the principle of repetition. So he says, you will begin to believe whatever you consistently repeat to yourself. So whatever you consistently repeat to yourself becomes a belief, becomes reality. You start believing it. And repetition, or another word for it, is the law of autosuggestion, is key in influencing your subconscious mind. And any idea that is, the third point is, any idea that is planted through the repetition of thought, so it's what you're constantly thinking. This is how some persons convince themselves of a thing. And it's really important that your environment, so I give you a tip. One of the things that I do is that I surround myself with like-minded people in a community that's thinking the same thing. Why? Because we attract to us that which we are. And if we know that there is a possibility to attract negative, then go out of your way to constantly be around the same people that are talking what you believe in, listen to the same things, so that you can influence your subconscious mind, so that it becomes automatic. And I guess that's why it's the law of auto-suggestion. Another thing that people use a lot are affirmations, and they constantly repeat it to themselves, but it needs to be done with repetition. With emotion. Okay, 3 stories in this book that I want to point out. The first one had to do with Joseph Grant. Now, Joseph Grant, this story is found on page 88 of my book. He's the banker who convinced himself that he couldn't overcome an embarrassing situation. He borrowed money from the bank and they found out. And he ran away and he kept repeating to himself, he said to himself, my God, this is going to kill me. Guess what happened? He repeated it so much time to himself that when they found him, he was dead. No physical injuries on his body. The doctor pronounced that he died from mental suicide. You see how powerful the human mind is? You see how powerful you are, how powerful your mind is? Okay, so that was a very interesting story. The second story that I want to speak about is from Mahatma Gandhi. And here it highlights the power of faith. So Mahatma Gandhi, which you probably know the story and can research a little bit more about, but for the sake of our time and keeping this to the point, he had no money, he had no battleships, He had no materials of warfare. He had no money. He had no home. However, he goes down in history, and it's remembered today as one of the most powerful men that ever lived. He was able to influence millions. And that is power. That is real power. So can you imagine what this man must have been thinking, and how he was able to attract to him the people, the circumstances, and the situations that allowed him to manifest the thing that he wanted, his desire. Okay, and the third story that I want to point out is that of Abraham Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln, who was the 16th president of the United States, late into his 40s, he wasn't considered very successful. He was a nobody from nowhere. That's how he was described. And yet he came to life at this time through a state of mind of faith mixed with strong emotions of love. And what happened here is that he met the love of his life. So he met the love of his life, and that caused everything to change for him. He was able to go down in history as one of the greatest presidents that the United States had ever seen. And he made such an impact because one of the things that he's remembered for is starting the process to free the slaves that were in the United States at that time. So he began that process, and eventually it led to a constitutional change that allowed the Blacks to be freed. So really, really powerful stories. So to summarize this chapter, I want to look at this poem in, for me, it's page 89 to 90. And I think this poem really, 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 really summarized this chapter for me. And before I go into the poem, I want to mention that there is another story at the end that takes up majority of the rest of the chapter. It's about Charles Schwab's. You can read that if you want to do a little bit more research on who used this power. But there are so many persons, and I think focus also on how you can use this to influence your life. Okay, so the poem, it starts by saying, the law of autosuggestion, through which any person may rise to altitudes of achievement which stagger the imagination, is well described in the following verse. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you won't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it is almost certain you won't. If you think you lose, you are lost. For out of the world we find, success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Life's battle don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but soon or late, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. I love this poem so much. Love this poem. And I think one of the things that really stand out for me in this poem is the fact that it's encouraging, you know, it's telling you that you can convince yourself that you can and you will. So think highly of yourself and go for the thing that you want. If you are lacking in confidence, on page 86, there's a self-confidence formula. You can read that on your own. And it gives you just simple steps or things that you can repeat this formula to yourself. You can write it out and you can read it every day, and it will help you to develop that self-confidence that you need to go after what you want. All right, so that's it for me today. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to speaking with you in the next video. I am really, really excited, and I hope you're following along with this book. And but more than that, I hope that you're taking action. Very important. Until my next video, take care.